So I want to kind of put this video together. I'm sure you guys have seen the title, but pretty much just showing how many cars and like basically what all the vehicles I've owned so far. And we'll go back to we'll go back to my first car. But my very first car was a 1995 Hyundai Elantra wagon. It was like a 2.4 liter or 2 liter, some small 4-cylinder. It was pretty bad. I mean, it was basically just a beater car. You know, I beat the crap out of this thing. After getting into, you know, the JDM stuff with some friends of mine, we started looking around. I had buddies that had 240 SXs. You know, they had S13 Verts, they had Miatas, you know, 86 Corollas, stuff like that. So I started getting into the JDM stuff, and I found me 1999 EK Civic sedan. It had the D15 4-cylinder, 1.5 liter, and it had the automatic in it. So even though it was automatic, I still had a lot of fun with it, and it basically just kind of like was the gateway to the Japanese domestic market with you know, modifying cars, you know, learning how to work on them and stuff like that, just basic stuff. After that, whilst I still had the Civic, I found a 1995 BMW E36 328IS coupe, black on black interior. So black exterior, black interior, and this car was essentially everything I was looking for. I was really looking at an S13, and this S13 was pretty much really what I wanted. I really wanted this S13, but 2 days before I was actually like going to seal the deal with the S13, the motor on that S13 blew. So what I did was I was already like talking to the guy with the E36 as well, and the E36 guy didn't have the title for the car. I gave him a solid offer for $900 without the title. Hit the guy up. He found the title. Still offered him $900. He took it. It was a steal. The car was pretty good, and then a month later, it blew a head gasket. So that summer of 2017, I want to say, I tore the whole thing apart and did my first head gasket job on a car. And that was, you know, it was interesting. I even bought a spare M52 engine just in case anything else was going bad with that motor. But after that, I mean, everything went fine. Whilst I had the E36, I still had the Honda Civic, and I was looking just for a manual daily. I was kind of getting sick of driving the slush box automatic Honda, you know, as a daily driver. So I found myself a 2006 Volvo S40, front wheel drive only, turbo 5-cylinder, 6-speed manual, and it was black interior, red exterior, really nice looking car, completely stock, and it only had 80,000 miles when I bought her. I went on to dailying that. At this point, I had 3 cars in my mom's driveway, and she was a little upset about that. So what I did was I sold the Civic to a buddy of mine, and I gave him a really good deal on it. And then I kept the BMW, and I held on to the Volvo as well. That Volvo was just my new daily driver at that point. I did some slight mods here and there to it. LED lights. I threw some new speakers, tinted the windows, did the rain guards, wheels, and then like a turbo timer, just small stuff here and there. Later on, I moved to Colorado, so I took the Volvo, packed everything I had in it, and drove out to Colorado and moved there. That's when I met a few buddies and I got back into the Honda game. but I still kept the Volvo, and I kept the BMW as well, but that was back in Chicago. So I was still driving around the Volvo. I was really into the Honda tuning, and I started doing some of that stuff and taking what I learned from the Honda stuff and kind of played around with the Volvo. So I threw a bigger turbo on it. I threw a Volkswagen, I want to say K14 turbo, not sure, but it's an Audi Volkswagen turbo on that car. And then I did a turbo back, catalyst downpipe, 3-inch, and I did it from the downpipe all the way back. It was just a full half-inch straight pipe, and it was nice. It was a great. I mean, it was obnoxious. I'm not gonna lie. Cold starts were very obnoxious. After that, so unfortunately that car got into an accident, and I did all the body work, fixed everything back up, got it looking brand new, but the only thing I couldn't figure out was there was an electrical issue. And auto electric is not my thing, so so I sold that, and the same day I picked up a 2004 Chevy Tahoe Z71 4-wheel drive, 5.3 liter. That only had 100,000 miles on her, and that thing ran like a beast. I drove it cross country for a few trips, took it camping, took it to weekend events. I towed with it. It was a great vehicle. Later on, I guess maybe 5 or 6 months later owning it, the wheel hubs went bad. Replaced the wheel hubs. Did all the general maintenance on her. All my buddies had diesel rigs, and I started getting into the diesel stuff. Granted, the Tahoe is a great tow rig, don't get me wrong. I just wanted something bigger and something that I can tow a lot more weight with. So I started looking at diesel trucks, looked at a lot of Cummins, looked at a lot of Duramax, a lot of Power Strokes, and I found this 2003 Ford Excursion with a 7.3 liter in it. The thing had 350,000 miles on her, and I was, my buddies were a little sketched out by it, and they told me what to look at. Looked at the blow by. There wasn't really any blow by that I saw, so I was like, what the hell, I'll buy it. I mean, you could tell me this thing had 800,000 miles on it, and I still probably would have bought it. The fact that it was just a diesel and it was a bigger truck was perfect. That was the seller. I bought it, drove that around. That was a great daily driver, and at the time, I'm still working on my E36. So in between me owning the Tahoe and selling it, I picked up the E36. I want to say in the summer of 2019. So after I picked up the Excursion, I sold the Tahoe. Whilst all that's going on, so Jason, myself, and Caleb are all working on drift cars that we have. Caleb had an S13. Jason has the RX-7 that he's still working on. And I was working on the E36 at the time, making it a turbo drift car build, as lightweight as possible and as budget as possible, which was probably the big issue. So I was doing everything, cutting a lot of corners, but the turbo motor was nothing I was cutting corners with. I was just cutting corners on just sketchy suspension stuff, eBay angle kits, stuff like that. Probably shouldn't have been doing that, but anyway, the motor I had, M3 cams, M3 head, stock 328 IS M52 bottom end, but I had the whole turbo manifold and everything. Had an HX35 turbo, and then I had a GT35, and I know I had a GT28. So I had the GT28, bought an HX35, but I needed an adapter for it. So got the adapter, and then I put a different turbine in that turbo. With all of that, once all that was put together, or around the same time, COVID was going on. COVID was just starting, and I was afraid of not having a solid job. So around that time, I joined the military, or enlisted in the military, which is where I am now. And around that is when I got rid of everything. So I got rid of the E36 with the motor, and I had a Megasquirt ECU. So a lot of that stuff was big money. Just the top end, ECU, ejectors, full turbo kit, you name it. And then I sold the shell with the motor. So the guy took everything. And then I still had to get rid of the Excursion. So I found a buddy of mine that was really interested in diesels at the time. Drove back home to Chicago. Got rid of the Excursion right before I shipped out. So I already enlisted at this point, but I still needed a car to get around. So I was talking to Jason's buddy Andy. I'm sure you guys know him, Spooky Andy. Let me buy a car off of him, and it was a 2004 Infiniti G35 coupe. Had the 6-speed, had the VQ 35, and that was it was a good ride. And right around the time I shipped out to boot camp, I I stored it at a buddy's house. Whilst in boot camp, COVID hit real hard, and the buddy had to get rid of it, had to sell it. So, he sold it. I was notified later after I got out of boot camp and whatnot, some odd months later. I wasn't too upset. So, no hard feelings. Some odd months later, after that, I found I was looking really into still trying to get into the JDM stuff and drift stuff. So I was looking at E46s, I was looking at 350Zs, but there was a lot of a few Fox bodies. I was really open to American Muscle, but if it was a Fox body, or if it was a Trans Am or something. So I was looking at a lot of those, a couple deals on Fox bodies, especially at the time because I was in Florida. So I was looking at those, and I didn't quite make a move on any of them up until Christmas of 2020, and I found myself a 2004 Mustang GT. Had the 4.6 in it, 5-speed manual. Guy had an upgraded clutch, upgraded suspension, upgraded wheels. I want to say it was 410 gears. He had different gearing in it. I already had the intake manifold, Typhoon intake manifold, upgraded intake, cold air intake, and then he had long tube headers already on it. I had no idea about the long tube headers until I put the car on the lift. But the car was super clean, and I didn't really have any issues with it. I bought it and started modifying it as soon as I got it back to Florida. I bought it in Chicago, and it was a very clean car, completely rust-free, which is very surprising for a Midwest car. Did a full exhaust on it, so from the long tube back, I did a resonator delete, and I threw on some Borla attack mufflers, and that just made it sound very aggressive. Later on, I bought a full Pro Charger kit for it. I was full Pro Charger and then full MSD 2-step. The 2-step wasn't the full package. I bought it from a previous guy, so I didn't really have everything to install it. And then the Pro Charger never got put on, as I was already looking at different things. So I sold the Pro Charger to another guy. But it was a great kit. It was a Pro Charger P1 SC for a small block Ford, 5.0, 4.6 liters, right around there. And then I started having some electrical issues with the car. So I was, I did everything, alternator, battery, starter, ruled out everything. And at this point I was at my wit's end, that I was about to either Terminator swap this car with a 4.6 dual overhead cam, or I was going to LS swap this car. And I got really in depth. I went down a rabbit hole with LS motors. So I was looking at every junkyard, looking at everything. And at the same time, I realized I wasn't going to be, my time in Florida was very short. So I had to find something that was a little more sufficient for traveling, like accommodate for storing a lot of stuff in, you know, for cross country travel. So found a guy that was willing to buy the Mustang, and with cash on top, and I ended up buying a 2002 GMC Yukon Denali. Now I really like the GMT 800 chassis. Obviously, I fell in love with that 2004 Tahoe, and so I kind of knew these cars, which is a great chassis in general, all around great car. So I bit the bullet on it, got the car. Car has 90,000 on the motor. It's an LQ4 6.0, and then fully rebuilt transmission. He had the paperwork, and the body has around 300,000 miles now. So it had like 270 something thousand when I bought her. You know, the car made it from Florida to Washington fine. No issues whatsoever. And then while I was in Florida, I was really, like I said, I was really looking at the LS car. So I found a guy on Facebook that had a 1999 Camaro SS rolling chassis. And, you know, I hit him up while I was still in Florida, and I said, hey man, you know, if you still have this vehicle in a few months, I have cash and I'm willing to buy this. We talked, we just kept in touch for the few months until I actually made it up to Washington. And within that first month, I moved there. I picked up a trailer and was headed over the border to grab it. Grabbed the car, drove back, and I already basically had a full idea of what I was going to do with this car.
No idea.
You never downloaded it yet?
Really?
Just track times, that's it.
So she was like 11, right?
Yeah, in that setup, yeah.
TH400 transmission, you know, build 5.3 or 6 liter LS, all the goods, and all the fixings for an LS motor. That's pretty much it as far as all the vehicles I've owned so far. It's a pretty short video, I know, but figured it's something that you guys would be entertained with. Right now, I'm just part stacking parts for the Camaro, as I can't build anything, can't really physically be there to build it. Once I get back, I'll be able to actually film more content and build the car. But the last you guys saw, I was putting together the bottom end. So once we get back, we'll be putting together the top end, putting the springs in, putting the push rods in, doing all the gaskets. I'm doing a full gasket refresh on this motor, putting the oil pan back on, all that. I've got all the parts, and I'm pretty much just waiting on little small things here and there. And the Holley Terminator is pretty much the last thing I'm waiting on. As far as all that goes, stay tuned. I'll put up some more content. I might do some vlogging here and there if you guys are into that. Let me know in the comments below. See you guys.